and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I've swapped my seat out and I'm on my little footstool, but I actually quite like it. Today's video, oh, I'll show you my jumper first. This is a second-hand jumper that I bought from a vintage, I bought it from a vintage store in Folkestone. David and I are going to take a trip to Folkestone one day this month. I'm very, very excited for it. Hopefully they'll have good Christmas jumpers like this. From a vintage store called Bounce in Folkestone. It says Christmas on the green, downtown Peaker. The whole outfit I think is quite 90s. The jumper's slightly oversized and is like a sweatshirt type thing. And then I've got cords on with a big black belt with my jumper tucked in. I'm feeling very Princess Diana. I've been watching The Crown and she seems to wear sort of jumpers tucked into stuff. Today's video is a book haul. It's a book haul of the books that I got for my birthday, of some books I've got from the publisher, of some books I've got from my wish list, of some books I've got from recording a podcast. More on that later. I'll start with my birthday books because they're all very, very exciting. The first one is a cookbook. And I am excited by this. My friends Alex and Kate bought me this, and it is a cookbook for pierogi. Now, pierogi are Polish dumplings, and David and I used to help out my cousin and her husband, my cousin Laura, when they owned a cafe. We used to help out and run like a supper club sort of every month. And one month, I can't remember what the theme was. Maybe it was a Polish supper club. I don't think it was. I feel like maybe it was like Eastern European, maybe.
What, the first one?
No, it wasn't the first one. I think it was Eastern European. But anyway, we made pierogi. I think they're quite the standard pierogi we made with mashed potato and chives inside. Absolutely delicious. And I've thought about those pierogi quite a lot since. Now, there's this new cookbook out with all different types of pierogi, how to make the dough for the pierogi, because they're little dumplings, how to sort of crimp those, like shape them and stuff like that. So here we go, look, there's a beautiful picture of them like that, but all different types of ways of crimping, and then fillings for them. Now, what I'm most excited about is that there's Christmas fillings. There's a Christmas Eve one, and there's a Boxing Day one. Let me see if I can find them. But there's all sorts. There's a whole, like, all of these could be made into, like, vegetarian or vegan. Oh, I've just seen autumnal pumpkin pierogi. They sound really, really good. And I'm quite keen to make some Christmas Eve ones, or maybe I'll make some Boxing Day ones, because I think, oh yeah, here we go. So the Christmas Eve ones have in them, oh no, it just says Boxing Day. Oh, so where's the Christmas Eve ones then? Let me tell you about the, I'm sure there was Christmas Eve ones. Maybe there's just Boxing Day ones. Have I gone wild? No, here we go. Sauerkraut and mushroom Christmas Eve pierogi. That's what they look like there. So I love sauerkraut and I love mushrooms. Then the Boxing Day ones have cranberry sauce in them, and then they're filled with basically leftover roast dinner, so leftover Christmas dinner. So in this instance, turkey meat, roast potatoes, frozen peas, parsley, mixed roast vegetables. So I would do that without the meat in. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be making some pierogi in the new year. Very, very excited. When I opened this on the day that my friends were all here, and they were all like keen to play board games, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just reading my book about pierogi. So I'm very excited about that. Then I've got two books that David's mum bought me. The first one is a memoir by Nick Grimshaw called Soft Lad. And this is a collection, a memoir, a collection of sort of stories from Nick's life. Nick is a radio presenter and podcast maker, TV presenter from the UK. I've sort of grown up with him. When I was late teens, early 20s, there was a programme on a Saturday and Sunday morning called T4, which basically used to watch really hungover. And Nick was a presenter on that. And then he was on Radio 1 when I used to listen to Radio 1. And now I listen to a podcast that he hosts with Angela Hartnett called Dish. And I really, really like him. He's hilarious. And he had sort of like working class northern upbringing, and I just love hearing memoirs from people that I already know, and how they got into the industry that they're in and stuff like that. So very, very much looking forward to it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about it. He was also very close friends with Amy Winehouse, so I wonder if she'll get mentioned in here as well. But looking forward to reading that. And then I've got quite a highly anticipated and hyped book for this year. That's Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng, the author of Little Fires Everywhere. I think David's mum might have actually bought me Little Fires Everywhere the year that it came out. I remember getting it for Christmas and her having bought that for me. So this is from that same author. It's here, 12-year-old Bird Gardner lives a quiet existence with his loving but broken father, a former linguist who now shelves book in Harvard's library. He knows not to ask too many questions, stand out too much, stray too far. For a decade, their lives have been governed by laws written to preserve American culture in the wake of years of economic instability and violence. To keep the peace and restore prosperity, the authorities are now allowed to relocate children of dissidents, especially those of Asian origin, and libraries have been forced to remove books seen as unpatriotic, including the works of Bird's mother, Margaret, a Chinese-American poet who left the family when he was 9 years old. God, this sounds amazing. So it's an old story made new of the ways supposedly civilised communities can turn a blind eye to the most searing injustice. It's a story about the power and limitations of art to create change in the world, how the lessons and legacies we pass on to our children, and how any of us can survive a broken world with our hearts intact. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed Little Fires Everywhere and Everything I Never Told You. So hopefully I enjoy this as much. So looking forward to reading that. And then David's sister, David's having a little cough over in the corner. David's sister bought me this by Lucy Worsley. This is Agatha Christie, A Very Elusive Woman. It's a biography on Agatha Christie. I'm interested in Agatha Christie. I've read a few of her books, and around sort of like in between Christmas and New Year last year, I read the Agatha Christie book, which is written from the perspective of Agatha's husband's mistress, chronicling, it's a fiction book, but chronicling the days when Agatha Christie goes missing. Sounds like she had a really, really interesting life, and I'm always interested to hear like where someone with those ideas could come from. Like the books and the adaptations that I've seen of Agatha Christie's works are always like, it's amazing. So interested to find out her background and where she might have had those ideas. Next year, so for the past few years, I've done sort of like reading projects where I do them for a month. Like last year I did June Austen and read lots of Jane Austen books and Jane Austen adaptations and books about Jane Austen. Previous to that I did Little Women. I've also done Pride and Prejudice and June Eyre. I think of doing, next year, going to do Augusta Christie. So in August, read Agatha Christie books and books about Agatha Christie and books that are inspired by or adapted from Agatha Christie novels. And I thought that'd be really cool. So if I can hang on to read this in August, then I absolutely will. But yeah, very much looking forward to finding out more about Agatha Christie. Then I'll do that. So I've had 2 books sent to me off of my wish list, which is an absolute joy and delight. And the first one I'm really, really excited about, and I think I'm going to read it sort of quite early next year. It'll be a reread for me because I originally read it when I got it out from the library on my e-reader, which I don't have anymore. It was a tablet that I got. I think I might have even got it free when I got my phone, and it was just, it's just not very good. And the book is so big with Libby, which is a library run app where you can get out ebooks and audiobooks. It had to go back and come back to me, so it went away for 3 weeks, then come back. So I read it with quite a big break in between. Now this is a series of books I'm so keen to get into because Mercedes has had a lovely time with them. I've heard other people reading them, and I want to reread this book and then move on to the other 2 books in the series, and that's Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. If you're the person who sent this to me off of my wish list, thank you so much. I'm very, very pleased and excited about it. As I said, it's a big old chunky book, and this is the Seven Waters trilogy. So yeah, this is the first book in the Seven Waters trilogy. Now, as I said, I've read this book, but it was maybe last year or the year before last, but I'm keen to read it again, and I think I'm going to do that early next year. I love a big chunky book to get into at the beginning of the year as well. This is following. Now, if you are familiar, or if you've listened to the audiobook of this, tell me how the name Sorcha, which is spelled S-O-R-C-H-A, is said. Because I thought I said Sersha. Somebody told me that was wrong. It's spelt Sorcha, and then somebody else said it was Sorka. So I'm interested to hear if anybody knows the correct pronunciation of that name. So we're following Sorka, and who is one of 7 children. The other 6 children are all boys, and she is her parents. Her father remarries to somebody who sort of like wicked stepmother vibes, and all sort of chaos and stuff ensues from then. I'm very, very, very excited to reread it again. Very, very excited to reread it again, and then get on to the next one. So there we go. And a lovely front cover. This is very emblematic of what's going to go on inside this book. So there we go. And then one that's arrived literally today, which I'm so excited about, is Tom Allen, Too Much. Tom Allen, comedian and TV presenter from the UK, and this is a book about, well, it's a memoir of his life. I've also got another one of his called Shame, but this is more of a sort of look on the death of his father. His father died quite suddenly in 2021. I listened to Tom's podcast that he does with Susie Ruffle, who's another comedian, British comedian that I absolutely love, and he was doing the podcast, not actually an episode of, but his father died, and then he come back to the podcast, and it was all such a shock to him, and I really feel like I've sort of followed his grief journey. I also find him tremendously entertaining and witty and wise and warm. Witty, wise and warm. Oh, aren't they just three things you want to be? But I find him hilarious. I really, really like him, and I'm really looking forward to reading more about his life and his sort of relationship with the grief of losing his father so unexpectedly. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. Then by the time you're watching this, the episode will be up. Philippa was very, very kind to invite me back onto the Christmas episode of Quick Book Reviews. Quick Book Reviews is a podcast that Philippa runs. I love it. She interviews authors, and it's just a lovely bookish place to be and listen to if you're into that sort of thing, which I am. And this is the third year now that Philippa's asked me to be on the Christmas episode, which I absolutely love doing, and you'll be able to hear if you listen to it. I will link it down below. I will link it, or I'll leave the information down below, because I think you have to go and find it where you listen to all your podcasts. And yeah, I always have such a lovely time doing it, and we always bring we've done it for 3 years, as I said, and we bring 5 Christmas books each and then have a little chat about them. So there's sort of 10 Christmas books that you can learn about or find out about on there, and then we have a little chat about what Christmas looks like for us and stuff like that. And yeah, it was just lovely, 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 lovely place to be, which I love doing anyway. And then Philippa was always kind enough to then send me books to say thank you for coming on the podcast, which is just amazing, because I don't expect anything, because I just have such a lovely time doing it. And I'll show you these books. Well, she sent me 3 and David 1, which is lovely. So the first one is by an author that I've read a lot of, and that's Instructions for a Heatwave by Maggie O'Farrell. Now, I've read Instructions for a Heatwave many, many, many years ago. When was it published? Because I think I might have read it 2013. Oh, also I got a Quick Book Reviews bookmark, which I've wanted for ages as well. I think I read it when it first came out in paperback, because before I discovered BookTube, I used to read a lot of the Richard and Judy book club books, and I believe this was on the book club list of books one year. So it's been a long, long time since I've read it. I don't remember anything apart from it's set in like the hottest summer on record, which I think has probably changed now, but that was in July 1976. And yeah, it's a story about that, and Robert Reardon tells his wife Greta that he's going around the corner to buy a newspaper and he doesn't come back. And it brings Robert's disappearance brings Greta's children, 2 estranged sisters and a brother on the brink of divorce, back home, each with different ideas as to where their father's gone. Maggie O'Farrell can write an amazing, amazing story, and I love the sort of like weaving of things, and maybe a detail that's mentioned earlier on will then come back and make a lot more sense later on. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that. I will hang on to till summer, I imagine. Maybe even in July, like July 1976. And then the next one was a complete, like, I was delighted that she got it for me, because I'd only been thinking about buying it for myself or popping it on my Christmas list, because it was, well, I'll show you. It's The Second Sight of Zachary Cloudesly by Sean Lusk, a debut this is. And I was watching Between the Covers, which is a bookish show on the BBC hosted by Sarah Cox, where she gets 4 celebrities to come on every week, and they read a book and discuss it, and then they each bring their own book and talk about their own book, and they read from, yeah, it's just a really great like show to watch if you're into books. And the book that they were discussing the week that Jessie Cave was on there, and I love Jessie Cave, was this book, The Second Sight of Zachary Cloudesly. Now, everyone was super impressed that it was a debut. It was so sort of like rich with detail and amazing research, which is what I love in a book. Like, I've been recently talking about Sarah Waters and things like that, and how much research she does in her book, and very, very excited to read a book which is very well researched also. This is this is set in, well, it starts in London in 1754. Weirdly as well, I've read so many books set in the 1700s recently. the Sarah Waters book I've just mentioned, Nettle Black, which I started, all around this sort of like 1750s time period. So mad that that seems to be happening all at the moment. Raised among the cogs and springs of his father's workshop, Zachary Cloudesly has grown up surrounded by strange and captivating clockwork automata. He is an enchanting child, beloved by his father Abel and the workmen who help bring his father's creations to life. He is also endowed with an extraordinary gift. At the touch of a hand, Zachary can see into the hearts and mind of the people he meets. But soon a near-fatal accident will take Zachary away from the workshop and his family. His father will have to make a journey to Constantinople that he will never return from, and years later, only Zachary can find out what happens. And also, beautiful, beautiful end papers of Constantinople map, beautiful. So yeah, oh, and then even closer, the other end paper is different. So yeah, when I opened that, it was literally like the day after I'd seen it on between the covers, and I was like, oh, that's so weird that I was actually going to buy that. And then a book that I'd never heard of, which I'm very excited of, and that's Four Treasures of the Sky by Jenny Tinghu Zhang. And yeah, like I said, I'd never heard this. So this is, in the tradition of Half of a Yellow Sun and the Kite Run, it comes the story of a young Chinese girl fighting to claim her place in 1880s American West. Dayu never wanted to be like the tragic heroine for whom she was named, revered for her beauty and cursed with heartbreak. But when she is kidnapped and smuggled across an ocean from China to America, Dayu must relinquish the home and future she's dreamed of. Over the years that follow, she is forced to keep reinventing herself to survive. From a calligraphy school to San Francisco brothel to a small town in the Idaho mountains, we follow Dayu on a desperate quest to outrun the tragedy that chases her. As anti-Chinese sentiment sweeps across the country in the wave of unimaginable violence, Dayu must draw on each of the cells she has been, including the one she most wants to leave behind, in order to finally claim her own name and story. Sounds bloody fantastic, doesn't it? So I'm very excited about that. And Jenny Tinghu Zhang is based in Texas, and this is a debut as well, and it was inspired by real life events. And then, as I've mentioned, she sent me 3 books, and then she sent David a book because she's just so sweet. David, do you want to come and talk about this, or do you want me to talk about it?
I'll let you talk about it.
So this is a graphic novel all about...
But I'm very grateful for it.
He's very grateful. All about Tetris by Box Brown. So yeah, it's all about Tetris. I really like the game Tetris. David really likes the game Tetris. And yeah, Philippa said this was one of her favourite books, graphic novels she'd read this year. So very exciting. I do love Tetris because it is so simple and yet so exciting. I love the artwork in this as well. It's very sort of like minimalistic, great artwork. Very excited. So that's that. And then the last book I wanted to show you is just a book that arrived, is a book that arrived from the publisher. This is already out. This came out on the 1st of this month, and it's A Down-Home Meal for Those Difficult Times by Meren Hadero, and it's got a blurb on it saying masterful by Chigozie Obiama, and another one by Britt Bennett, whose books I also love. Witty and wistful, complex and heartbreaking, a thrilling debut. Many debuts. Let me tell you what this is all about. An enterprising young man on the verge of losing his home in Addis Ababa pursues an improbable opportunity to turn his life around. A woman visiting her country of origin for the first time finds that an ordinary object opens up an unexpected complex bridge between worlds. An intergenerational friendship forms between 2 refugees living in Iowa who have connections to Germany before the fall of the Berlin Wall. Kaleidoscopic, powerful and illuminative, the stories in A Down-Home Meal for these difficult times expand our understanding of the essential and universal need for connection and the vital refuge of home. So this is a collection of short stories. Very exciting, and as I said, already out, published by Canongate. So thank you to Canongate for sending that to me. So there we go. There are some books that I've got my mitts on towards the end of November, because that's when my birthday is, and then at the beginning of December. Let me know if you are hyped for any of these, if any of these are on your Christmas list, if you have read any of them. Very excited. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!